Did you know that George Washington never chopped down a cherry tree? This iconic story is just one of many historical myths that have shaped our understanding of the past. Today, let's peel back the layers of some of the most surprising historical legends and see what's really true. First up, let's talk about the cherry tree tale. It's a charming story told to illustrate Washington's honesty. But it turns out, this story was invented by an author named Mason Locke Weems in the early 1800s. Weems wanted to create a moral narrative around Washington's character, so he made it up. Washington was indeed a great leader, but he never confessed to a tree incident because it never happened. How does this change your view of the founding father? Now let's jump to the popular belief that Vikings wore horned helmets. Picture this, a fierce Viking warrior charging into battle, horns on their helmet, right? Well, it's time to debunk this myth. The horned helmet image comes from 19th century romantic art and opera, not from actual Viking culture. In reality, Vikings wore simple, practical helmets made from iron or leather. So, next time you see a Viking in a movie, remember it's all about the drama, not the history. Moving on, let's talk about Cleopatra. Most people envision her as an Egyptian queen draped in luxurious fabrics. But did you know that she was actually of Greek descent? Cleopatra was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great's conquests. She was the first of her line to learn the Egyptian language and embrace Egyptian culture, but her ancestry was distinctly Hellenistic. This perspective gives us a whole new understanding of her identity and reign. Next, let's tackle the myth that Napoleon Bonaparte was extremely short. The common belief is that he was just 5 feet tall, but that's misleading. Napoleon was actually around 5'6", which was about average for Frenchmen of his time. The misconception stemmed from the confusion between French and British measurements and his appearance alongside his imperial guard, who were notably tall. So while he may have had a big personality, he wasn't as small as history suggests. Now, let's explore the myth of the Great Wall of China being visible from space. It's a widely held belief that astronauts can spot this colossal structure from orbit. However, this is not true. The Great Wall is too narrow and follows the natural contours of the landscape, making it nearly impossible to see from space without aid. This myth highlights how our imagination can sometimes outpace reality. How about the legend of the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates? Many think he had a death wish and willingly drank poison to prove a point. While Socrates did choose to die rather than flee, it wasn't so much a death wish as it was a stand for his principles. He was sentenced to death for allegedly corrupting the youth of Athens, and he believed in accepting the law of the land, even if it meant his own demise. This reflects the complex nature of his philosophy and the values he held dear. And let's not forget about the myth that Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." This famous quote is often used to illustrate her supposed ignorance and indifference to the plight of the poor. However, there's no solid evidence she ever said this phrase. It was likely a fabrication to portray her as a villain. The real story of Marie Antoinette is far more nuanced, involving political turmoil and a struggle for identity amid revolution. So what does it all mean? These myths and legends shape our understanding of history, but they often oversimplify complex figures and events. They become part of our cultural narrative, but digging deeper reveals a richer, more intricate tapestry of truth. Next time you hear a historical story, ask yourself, is it fact or fiction? What other myths do you think we might need to unravel? The past is more fascinating than you might think.